I understand wanting to take it slow, but we are on a tight timeline to plan our next few steps together. It's important to find out sooner rather than later.
Can you believe the audacity of this guy? It's outrageous. I mean, the man's broke. He's homeless. He's only just met Faith hours ago. He's come to the Philippines to live off her. And yet already he's trying to put pressure on her. But talking of pressure, Brian seems to be adopting the same pressure tactics too.
Yeah, I undress myself. I can take care of myself pretty much. But sometimes if I do meet somebody, maybe I'll throw them a little test sometimes and have them help me out.
Now, before we get to just how uncomfortable Ingrid is, let's start this video with Looney Loren. Now, we left him in the last video having just arrived in the Philippines, and undeniably, there were definitely sparks flying between him and Faith. But given that we know just how much Loren is lying, it's a relief to see that Faith is actually being quite cautious.
Faith seems a little shy physically, but I'm hoping that soon she'll warm up to me and everything will be great because I'm super attracted to her and I can't wait to get closer to her.
Now, Faith has said that she's open to having sex with Loren, but before she does, she wants to make sure there's trust in the relationship. She wants to make sure that his real life persona matches that of the virtual one that she's been dating. So as they pull into the hotel where Faith lives and works, Loren checks into a separate room. Now, we're not told whether that's a room that he paid for himself or Faith has managed to get it for him complimentary or on some kind of heavy discount, but either way, immediately you can see that Faith feels a little awkward. She immediately goes into work mode.
You have a coffee, complimentary coffee, water, here.
Yeah.
We have your towel here.
Yeah.
And that's it. This is your room.
Okay.
You'd never guess that these two have been in a relationship for 6 months, would you? Faith is clearly quite shy, and Loren, having just been travelling for 24 hours, isn't exactly at his best either. Now, they both agree to take some time apart, give Loren some space to freshen up and rest a little, and they reconvene a few hours later when they head out for dinner.
I'm super nervous right now because even though I am 30 years old, this is my first real date with a man that I have feelings for.
Yeah, and that's potentially the worrying thing, isn't it? Faith is inexperienced in love. Like, Loren's her first ever boyfriend, if you can even call it that. Remember, this is a guy who's actively sleeping around behind Faith's back. Like, you just hope that Faith's inexperience and naivety, her past painful dating experiences, aren't now gonna lead to a situation where she lets Loren take advantage, where she lets him get away with murder.
Lots of foreigners say that I love you. Then, they're not knowing that I'm a trans. Then after that, they block me.
Loren reassures Faith that he likes her. In fact, he says he likes the whole deal, essentially meaning he loves the fact she's a trans woman who still has a penis. But just the mere fact that he's said that has made Faith feel good. And as a result, she begins to open up to Loren about how she fears getting her heart broken.
That's why I'm okay with taking it slow as you need to go.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to do anything you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But after 20 days, we have to have an idea.
Loren's saying all of the right things, isn't he? He's clearly making a concerted effort to charm his way into Faith's heart and pants. But we know from when he was back home that his plan is to try and push Faith into doing things that he wants.
If her way is monogamy, are you going to be okay with that?
I mean, I'm gonna have to accept it or try and push her into not. Hopefully it's okay. I understand wanting to take it slow, but we are on a tight timeline to plan our next few steps together. It's important to find out sooner rather than later.
Okay, but the thing is, Loren, you've been lying to Faith. Your lies, your dishonesty, means she has no idea how tight your timeline is. You haven't told her that you intend to stay in the Philippines forevermore. In fact, you haven't told her that your plan is to marry her on this trip within 20 days and then be in a non-monogamous relationship with her. It's just insane that this man who can't be trusted is now trying to set the rules, put pressure and speed up timelines, potentially leaving a very naive Faith in a very bad position. But all of that to come, because for now, let's move on to Brian and Ingrid. So, having just met at the airport for the very first time, Ingrid's first challenge, being with a wheelchair user, begins in the airport car park.
A gente tem que tirar os controles ainda, tudo, mas melhor se a gente coloca lá dentro primeiro a mala e abre lá dentro, entendeu? Mas que não posso subir lá para ajudar, entendeu?
Tá.
Now, Brian has brought with him the hand controls that can be fitted onto any car that will then allow him to drive. But because of the partial paralysis in his hands, Ingrid is left to take the reins and set it all up. And while she's happy to help, she is also a little surprised by the request.
Eu fiquei surpresa que ele pediu para mim instalar o controle no carro, né? Porque ele diz que viaja sozinho, faz as coisas, é independente, né?
Here's the thing, right? We know that Ingrid has put very little thought into what it's actually like to be with a disabled man. Now, part of that may well be because of what Brian has told her, or rather chosen not to tell her. But the harsh reality is that Brian isn't going to be able to do everything that Ingrid seems to think he can. And she experiences this for the second time when they get to their hotel room. You see, as Ingrid is in the shower freshening up, Brian preemptively takes half of a little blue magic pill just in case.
Sex is very important for me in a relationship, even though I don't feel too much down here. People would ask, if you don't feel, why do you do it? And the biggest part about it, I guess, is feeling wanted.
Brian takes the little blue pill because he says it would probably weird her out if she walked out of the shower and was in the mood for action, but I couldn't get hard. But with sex clearly on his mind, Brian has come up with a way to try and test Ingrid. You see, he throws her into the deep end and immediately makes her feel a bit uncomfortable by asking her to help him take off his clothes and get in the shower.
Eu não vou ficar assistindo do banho, não.
No, calma aí, sério. I undress myself, I can take care of myself pretty much, but sometimes if I do meet somebody, maybe I'll throw them a little test sometimes and have them help me out.
Now, keep in mind that they haven't even barely kissed yet. They've known each other in person for a few hours at most. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand what Brian's doing. He's trying his best to normalise the situation and get over that hurdle as quickly as possible. But given that everything he's asking her to do, he's fully capable of doing himself, this does give weird sex pest vibes.
Tá bom, pode tirar a cadeira.
Pronto.
Obrigado.
Eu não vou ficar assistindo do banho, não.
Like, he literally says he doesn't need this help. So why then is he manipulating the situation? Some might even say taking advantage of the situation to get her to see him naked in the shower. She's clearly not comfortable with it. It feels a bit full on, doesn't it? And speaking of which, if he really does plan on having sex tonight, then someone should probably tell him, making Ingrid feel even more awkward by talking about his catheter is probably gonna have the opposite effect.
Que diabo é isso?
Ingrid, você sabia que eu usei o catheter, não? Olha a foto. Olha, não é bicho não, por que tá com medo?
Aí tem pra botar.
Tá, é isso, o barulho é isso.
Brian explains to Ingrid, very clearly grossed out and reluctant to hear about this Ingrid, that in order for him to put his catheter bag on, he needs to have a bit of a hard-on. If my dick is hard, then I put it on almost like a condom and glue it down, he tells her. And again, all of this is TMI for your very first night together. Brian seems to have a bit of trouble reading the room.
Que isso faz parte, né, da vida dele, né? Só que eu acho um pouco estranho, né? No primeiro dia, algumas horas depois, né, depois do encontro, tô me sentindo...
And with that, Brian's test massively backfires. Sex is most definitely off the table for tonight. This really isn't the romantic first night that Ingrid imagined. Now, the thing is, while I agree that Ingrid was definitely in need of a reality check, while it is important for Brian to be honest and normalise his disability, as he says, I'm sorry, but that's way too full on for your first night together, surely. It's completely understandable that Ingrid feels overwhelmed.
Cansou?
Não.
Cansou de ajudar já? Não tô fazendo nada de respeito, eu tô fazendo
Não.
Ingrid, more out of politeness and honesty I suspect, tells Brian that it's all okay, she feels fine, but she's just tired. She tells him she's quite shy, can we please continue this conversation another day? And as she rolls over, turns her back to him and clearly signals she's not ready for sex, you've got to imagine she's probably thinking to herself, what the heck have I got myself into? Am I really ready for this relationship? Is this a big mistake?
It seems like it's a little uncomfortable for Ingrid. And I'm worried that I did expose too much too soon. So I'm hoping that we can get past that.
Yeah, you think? It's safe to say you did expose her to a bit too much. That, Brian, is what happens when you put too much pressure on. It's a valuable lesson. Loren, take note.